After China, Taiwan conducts live firing drills.
China is clearly trying to deter other countries from interfering in its attempt to invade Taiwan. Its rehearsal of anti-access and area denial, or A2AD, tactics gives us a clear image of China's geostrategic ambition beyond Taiwan.
Taiwan says prepared to beat back Chinese aggression. Asks democracies to unite against authoritarian regimes. Has China set the new normal in Taiwan Straits? That's our top focus on the show. China is clearly trying to normalize the escalation along the Taiwan Strait. From missiles flying over Taiwan's airspace to fighter jets and warships crossing the median line before turning back. Taiwan is conducting its own live fire drills and has insisted China hasn't come close to their territorial waters. That's 12 nautical miles from Taiwan's coast. Some analysts argue, if not now, then when? That's the question. When will China attack Taiwan? When will China actually start choking Taiwan economically, bringing it to its knees? Will the world react in time? I'm Gaurav Sawant. We get you details, but as always, we get started with the headlines on India First. Nitish Kumar resigns as Bihar Chief Minister, reunites with RJD's Tejasvi Yadav, set to form the new government tomorrow. BJP cries betrayal after Nitish Kumar exits the NDA, accuses the JDU of committing dhoka with Bihar, says the people of Bihar will take badla. Goon Neta Shrikant Tyagi arrested from Meerut after a 4-day manhunt. VIP SUV with MLS sticker and BJP flag used to flee seized by the Uttar Pradesh police. Eknath Shinde cabinet finally takes shape. 9 ministers from the BJP and 9 from the Shinde Sena take oath. '23 Grand Slam winner Serena Williams announces her retirement, says she will evolve away from tennis after the upcoming US Open. Multiple loud explosions have been heard and thick black plumes of smoke seen rising from the direction of a Russian military airbase in the Crimean Peninsula. Videos captured from the scene from a nearby tourist beach seem to indicate, and there you're looking at those visuals of earlier this evening, thick plumes of smoke rising from very close to a Russian airbase. At least 12 explosions of varying intensity were heard in the course of a couple of minutes. The Russian governor of Crimea said he had gone to the area and that circumstances are being clarified. An advisor to the Russian governor of Crimea confirmed that multiple explosions had occurred but declined to comment on the possible cause of these explosions. Russia, of course, had for decades leased the naval port in Crimea, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet from Kiev. But in 2014, Russia took control of the entire peninsula from Ukraine in a move that isn't recognized by most countries. Crimea, of course, has so far been spared from intense bombardment and artillery combat that has taken place in the eastern and the southern part of Ukraine. Remember, the conflict started almost 6 months ago on the 24th of February when Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered Russian armed forces into Ukraine, including some forces that were based at the peninsula. For the latest, I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Abhishek Bhalla joining us with the latest on the story. Also joining us from the Donbass region is senior journalist Xenia Kondrateva. She's joining us from Donbass. Xenia, if I could come to you first, what more do we know of these multiple blasts and the impact?
Yeah, so far the Russian Minister of Defense said that it was an accident at the ammunition storage facility.
Okay.
That's the version so far. We know of 3 casualties. I don't know if any fresh information has come in last 30 minutes, but I think that's what we know so far. We also know that Ukraine has not commented yet or claimed for any attack. But what we also know, to put this in the context, that a couple of weeks back, maybe 3 weeks back, we have heard from one of the senior officials of Ukrainian army, I believe, that they will not be hesitant. They will not hesitate to attack, to strike into Crimea or any other territory if that's necessary. And he particularly mentioned Crimean bridge, the bridge that Russia has built to connect the Crimean Peninsula with the rest of Russia. So he mentioned that we will strike that.
Does Ukraine have the capability? What kind of attacks can Ukraine mount in Crimea, and especially in and around the airbase, if at all?
It's difficult for me to comment. I'm sure it does have capabilities, and with the Western supplies that are continuing, it probably has. But I'm not the best person to comment what kind of, how close it is to the border to reach. But I'm sure that Ukrainian, as we see, because I'm reporting from Donetsk right now, and considering the kind of strikes they're capable to do on the city, they definitely have the capability to strike long-range weapons.
Okay. Xenia, stay with me for a moment. Abhishek, you've been speaking to your sources on ground. What's the latest that you've been able to pick up?
Well, Gaurav, yes, there has been a series of explosions. Silence from the Ukrainian side. Ukraine has not commented. Russia has also come out with a very cryptic kind of an explanation as to what has happened, not directly blaming Ukraine, just saying that these explosions took place near an airfield in Crimea. But, you know, just to sort of look at the situation, if at all it's the Ukrainian counterattack, then this could very much change the course of this war. And why, it's extremely significant for Ukraine to carry out this kind of a punitive military action on Crimea is because it's from Crimea that Russia is controlling its operations as far as the south of Ukraine is concerned.
Okay,
so
stay with me for a moment. Xenia, the situation on ground as far as this conflict between Russia and Ukraine is concerned, with additional weapons coming Ukraine's way, is this a stalemate? Is there an escalation? Is there an apprehension of an escalation coming winters?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I would disagree with our colleague that it would change the course of the war. Because 1 or 2 strikes in the Russian territory, and those strikes have been happening. If at all it was a strike, I would again emphasize, because Russian Defense Ministry clearly said there was no attack, there was no impact. Let's leave it to them. Doing those strikes and 1 or 2 strikes cannot change the course of the war. What's happening on the ground right now? That Russia has been advancing in the Donbass region around Donetsk. It has been slowly, very slowly, but very steadily advancing. And I can hear it from my window on the daily basis, what is really happening on the ground. So we have to speak whether it will change the course of things in the south.
Okay.
I doubt, because striking one ammunition depot cannot change the course. Whether Russia will be provoked, again, if it was an attack, will Russia be provoked to use the weapons it has not used before? That's a very different question, because Russia commenting on Ukraine's statement that we will not hesitate to strike, it has that it will lead to very serious consequences. So that's a bit the scariest part, I would say.
It indeed does appear to be scary. Zinia and Abhishek, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. From one conflict zone to the other conflict zone. As China extended its war drills around Taiwan, Taipei too started its live-fire war drills in the southern part of the island. Taiwan's drills included live firing by 155mm howitzers and flare, wargaming, beating back an amphibious assault. 16 Chinese fighter jets crossed the median line. Taiwan cautioned the world that China's actions would not remain restricted just to choking Taiwan Strait, but were aimed at denying freedom of navigation both in South and East China Sea. 40 howitzers of the Taiwan Army open up along the island's southern coast almost simultaneously. The 155mm howitzers spit fire to deter an amphibious assault by the Chinese army in these drills. Taiwan has been described as an unsinkable aircraft carrier given its strategic location. Military exercises by the 8th Army Corps is to ensure hostile forces do not reach Taiwan's territory and are neutralized before they enter the coastal waters. Taiwan's foreign minister hit out at the Chinese live-fire military drills after the departure of US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, calling it Beijing's irresponsible behavior that undermined not just regional peace, but also international trade and transportation.
China is clearly trying to deter other countries from interfering in its attempt to invade Taiwan. Its rehearsal of anti-access and area denial, or A2AD, tactics gives us a clear image of China's geostrategic ambition beyond Taiwan.
Beijing's military drills that began on the 4th of August continued even on the 9th. On the 6th day of the Chinese military drills, 45 PLA Air Force fighter jets and 10 PLA Navy warships carried out aggressive maneuvers. Taiwan said the joint air and naval exercises around Taiwan included 16 PLA Air Force fighter jets crossing the median line aggressively before returning to the Chinese side. Taipei insists Beijing was using Nancy Pelosi's visit as an excuse to conduct these aggressive military exercises to destroy status quo across the Taiwan Straits.
China's real intention behind these military exercises is to alter the status quo in the Taiwan Strait and the entire region. This has already brought significantly unstable elements into the mix, threatening regional security.
Taiwan has warned the West that Beijing's anti-access and area denial exercises are not limited to the Taiwan Strait, but are aimed to take full control of the South and East China Sea and treat it not as international waters, but as China's territory. China's Eastern Theater Command insists the focus of the Chinese air, land and sea drills are to work on joint blockade and joint support and logistics operations.
In the operations this time, we, with the support of the Joint Combat System, focused efforts on unclogging the direct link from target discovery to the terminal shooter with the achievement of desired results. We also systematically examined our tactics for offensive campaigns, honed and improved our capability of precise strike and destroyed the vital targets on the island so as to ensure our Air Force's efficiency, accuracy and intensity.
Taiwan says China has no right to interfere or alter Taiwan's status, claiming Taiwan is neither subordinate to China nor intimidated by Chinese war drills. Given China's anti-submarine warfare exercises, Taiwan is working on its response to counter the Chinese threat to strangle Taipei through a military blockade. of the Taiwan Strait. The US finally reacted to China's drills, claiming China is not in a position to escalate the situation beyond the current exercises.
I'm not worried, but I'm concerned that they're moving as much as they are. But I don't think they're going to do anything more.
China is yet to ease its stranglehold around Taiwan. Taipei's artillery drills will continue even on Wednesday, and the US aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan remains in South China Sea conducting freedom of navigation patrols. The area remains a tinderbox. Bureau Report, India Today. So is China succeeding in its aim to choke Taiwan? Go after the economy with these continuous military drills? Has China succeeded in establishing a new normal with missiles flying over Taiwan and fighter jets and warships crossing the median line? And what next? Joining me from Taipei is Brian Ho, editor, New Blue magazine from Taiwan, and Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, former Kashmir Corps commander and a keen China watcher. Brian, is China successfully choking Taiwan's economy, trying to bring Taiwan down to its knees by these continuous military drills around Taiwan?
So that remains to be seen. It's too early to see that. And shipping has resumed despite the fact that these drills are taking place. And so there's a question then, what will happen going forward? For China to choke Taiwan off economically, this would take time. China has phrased its actions as a blockade. But would it actually conduct a long-term blockade or a substantive military blockade? That's a different question altogether. I don't think the Taiwanese government would take that sitting down, nor do I think the U.S. would. But I think that it is a question what China's actions now going forward. I mean, it's notable this takes place at the same time as economic measures by China targeting Taiwan in terms of import blocks or some export blocks. And so I think these two things go hand in hand.
Okay. General Hasnain, how much of this, in your opinion, is optics for domestic audience in China, and how much of this is actually China wargaming the choking of Taiwan or preparation for an actual assault that some argue could take place as early as next 24 months?
Gaurav, there is no doubt about it. China's strategy has always been to follow a line of information psychological warfare. And it has ramped up its forces to ensure that. It got taken by surprise by the Pelosi visit, no doubt, and is now moving and responding to it. I think this will last the better part of a couple of days more. Remember, to take this to the level of an all-out war is not the kind of environment at the moment. And I think President Biden himself has expressed that he's really not concerned. Remember, China has invested $1.74 trillion in the United States. A war with the United States means that amount of money is wiped out from the Chinese economy. It cannot afford to go to war with America today. They are very good in playing these mind games. They are very good in doing brinkmanship. They've done it in Doklam with us. And if you remember in Doklam, this is the kind of war games that they played out in the depth areas in Tibet at that time. They did the same with us in April 2020 in Ladakh. Okay. And in the depth areas also they played out these war games. This is a part of Chinese war strategy. And I don't think this will last beyond the next perhaps 48 to 96 hours.
Okay. Brian, is that also your appreciation? Because some analysts believe China wants to choke the Taiwan Straits for a regime change in Taiwan, bring in a regime more friendly to Beijing.
Yes, that would not be possible. In fact, the drills increase support for the currently ruling Democratic Progressive Party, which is the party historically of Chinese independence. And so this is a way in which China's drills may be aimed at domestic consumption for domestic audiences or to consolidate Xi Jinping's power, but they actually ended up pushing Taiwan's sentiment further away from China. And in this sense, this is counterintuitive to its own aims. I think the drills will continue for some time, but I also agree that this might not go on past this week. China announced on Monday that they would continue past the end time, on Sunday, that they would continue past the originally scheduled end time for the drills, making it unclear as to where they would take place and when they would take place. I think China wants to keep the pressure on Taiwan with this sense of being able to strike or potentially conduct an invasion at any time, or that military drilling can occur. But in reality, China cannot do that. And apart from the effect on U.S.-China economic relations, which would affect China's economy, already slowing before the start of COVID-19 and affected by rolling lockdowns because of COVID-0, efforts to maintain COVID-0, Taiwan and China's economies are interlinked. For example, regarding semiconductors that China's own supply lines rely on. And so I don't think it goes two-way either in terms of this economic relationship.
No, but General, doesn't China then stand exposed, or is China testing Taiwan's resolve like it tested India's resolve, whether in Doklam or in Galwan? It's seeing responses, it's modifying its strategy, and then the next assault could be bigger because they've already normalized what's happening now. Doklam, we are seeing a bigger Chinese build-up. In Ladakh, we are seeing a much bigger Chinese build-up and a bigger Chinese exercise that's already taking place both in Xinjiang and in Tibet, General.
Yeah, Gaurav, these are two very different situations, no doubt, although we can compare them and see the manner in which both of them panned out. But you got to look at the internal situation in China also. 2 months from now, we are probably going to be seeing the 20th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party assemble. That is going to be looking at the potential extension to President Xi Jinping. Now, is that the time when President Xi Jinping will be happy to see such military activity taking place in the maritime zone or on the borders anywhere? I don't think so. I think it will be something very much akin to 2017 when they pulled out of Doklam primarily because of the BRICS summit, which was coming up at Wuhan, and also because of the Chinese Communist Party Congress, the 19th Congress, which was taking place at that time. Whatever they do to ramp up this situation, to my mind, is only going to assist and help President Biden. His ratings, his approval ratings had gone absolutely low. I think with this kind of activity, it is showing him to be a confident leader, and perhaps from the 38% that he had fallen to, we'll see a ramp up of his approval ratings.
Okay, Brian, what is the reading in Taiwan, the way the United States has reacted? USS Ronald Reagan, the aircraft carrier, is in South China Sea and staying on longer.
Yeah, that's right. And so there has not been a strong reaction yet because I think particularly the mood is waiting to see what is happening. People in Taiwan are not panicking. Chinese threats have been directed at Taiwan for literally decades, and so this is nothing new. People actually only reacted quite slowly right before the Pelosi visit took place that it would happen. I don't think people were actually so focused on it as a news issue. But so people are not panicking, and I think particularly with the U.S. response, the Pelosi visit was already seen as a show of support for Taiwan from the U.S. People did not really perceive these splits that did occur between Biden and Pelosi that much. And so I think with the U.S. conducting freedom of navigation operations, this will also be seen as reassuring of the U.S. role in defending Taiwan. Whether that would actually take place is a different question altogether, but I think public faith in the U.S. still remains.
Public faith in U.S. remains. General, should the U.S. not have been closer to the Taiwan Strait? Has China succeeded in setting a new normal? Missiles firing over Taiwan, flying over Taiwan, or aircraft crossing the median. Isn't that China escalating already?
Yes, there's no doubt that China is escalating, and it knows that the U.S. conduct of freedom of operations is reasonably away from the Straits for the moment. The United States also is not taking a risk. It has taken enough risk with the visit of Nancy Pelosi itself, and thereafter it has attempted to try and de-escalate, kept away from it. You can see that ramping up of activity has not taken place. Only the conduct of operations, maritime operations, freedom of navigation operations is the only thing. No demonstrations, no firing, nothing of that kind has taken place at all. So I think it's sensible not to risk this escalation anymore. The Chinese, yes, you're right. The Chinese have tried to establish a new normal by escalating it up to a point. But I think they've reached that point, the level of tolerance, they've reached that and probably will de-escalate from tomorrow onwards.
Okay. Incidentally, the United States has also reportedly postponed the Minuteman III ballistic missile test so that China does not read that missile test wrongly and escalate further. We will continue to track developments on the story very closely. I've run out of time on this part of the show. Brian, for joining me from Taipei, and General Hasnain, as always, many thanks. A quick break. Abha Bakaya comes up next with Business Today. Stay with us.
public health, all political parties traveling from different parts.
Armed with facts,
Looking at political background.
she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold, and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories from every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.